The most mysterious disappearances in history, the lost colony of Roanoke. In 1587, over 100 English men, women, and children arrived on Roanoke Island off the coast of present-day North Carolina. They were settlers seeking to establish England's first permanent foothold in the New World. Their governor, John White, brought his own daughter and infant granddaughter Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas. Within months, supplies ran dangerously low. White made the difficult decision to sail back to England for provisions, leaving behind his family and the other colonists. But war with Spain delayed his journey. 3 long years passed before he could return. When White finally arrived in August 1590, he found the settlement completely abandoned. Houses had been dismantled in an orderly fashion. No signs of struggle or violence were evident. Carved into a wooden post were the letters Croatoan, the name of a nearby island and friendly native tribe. There were no bodies, no remains, no distress markers. The colonists had simply vanished. Theories range from integration with the Croatoan tribe to Spanish attacks or death by starvation. The mystery has never been solved. Roanoke stands as America's oldest unsolved disappearance, a haunting reminder that even entire communities can vanish without a trace. The disappearance of the 9th Roman Legion. In the 2nd century AD, the Roman Empire stretched across 3 continents, held together by the discipline and might of its legions. Among the most distinguished was Legio Nona Hispana, a force of over 5,000 soldiers with a history spanning more than 200 years. They had fought in Spain, marched with Julius Caesar, and helped conquer Britain. The legion was stationed in York, the northern frontier of Roman civilization, beyond Lake Caledonia, a wild and hostile land inhabited by fierce tribes. In approximately 120 AD, the 9th Legion marched north to suppress uprisings or push the boundaries of the empire further into the highlands. Then, they simply vanished from history. No battle reports document their destruction. No inscriptions commemorate their victories. Their standards and eagle, symbols of Roman pride, were never recovered. The legion that had existed for centuries disappeared as if it had never been. Some historians believe they were ambushed and annihilated by Pictish warriors in the dense forests of Scotland. Others suggest the legion was quietly transferred to another troubled frontier and met its end there. A third possibility is that the legion suffered such a catastrophic defeat that Rome, in shame, simply erased it from official records. The disappearance of the 9th Legion remains one of antiquity's most enduring mysteries, a reminder that even the mightiest empires cannot account for all they're lost. The Mary Celeste. In the autumn of 1872, the American merchant brigantine Mary Celeste set sail from New York Harbor bound for Genoa, Italy. She carried a cargo of 1,700 barrels of denatured alcohol, along with Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife, their young daughter, and a crew of 7 sailors. On December 4th, another ship spotted the Mary Celeste adrift in the Atlantic Ocean, roughly 400 miles east of the Azores. When the crew boarded her, they found the ship completely abandoned. The cargo was intact. Personal belongings remained untouched. The captain's log ended abruptly 9 days earlier with a routine entry. Navigation equipment was still in place, though the ship's lifeboat was missing. Food and water supplies were adequate, and there were no signs of struggle or violence. The vessel's pump was disassembled, and one of the hatches was open, but the ship was in no immediate danger. What happened in those final hours remains one of maritime history's most enduring enigmas. Theories range from fear of an alcohol vapor explosion prompting hasty abandonment, to a sudden waterspout, to mutiny. Though none fully explain the evidence, 10 souls aboard simply vanished, leaving behind a ghost ship drifting silently across the empty ocean. The Mary Celeste herself would sail no more, forever synonymous with the inexplicable. Ambrose Bierce. In the autumn of 1913, a 71-year-old man prepared for one final adventure. Ambrose Bierce was already a legend in American letters, a master of dark satire and supernatural tales. His stories probed the mysteries of death with a cynicism born from witnessing the horrors of the Civil War. Now, decades after the battlefields, he announced his intention to travel south into Mexico, a country convulsing with revolution. His last known letter was posted from Chihuahua in late December. In it, he wrote cryptically about observing Pancho Villa's army and expressed a fatalistic curiosity about what lay ahead. After that, silence. No body was ever recovered. No credible witness came forward. One of America's most distinctive literary voices simply vanished into the chaos of a foreign civil war. Some believe he was killed in battle, cut down by a stray bullet in the violence he had come to observe. Others suggest he was executed by revolutionary fighters who mistook him for a spy. A more romantic theory holds that he orchestrated his own disappearance, perhaps ending his life on his own terms in the Grand Canyon. His final act a deliberate mystery worthy of his own fiction. The irony was not lost on those who knew his work. Here was a writer who had spent his career exploring the thin boundary between life and death, only to cross that boundary himself and leave no explanation behind. The Flannan Isles Lighthouse Keepers. Off the rugged coast of Scotland, the Flannan Isles rise from the Atlantic like jagged teeth. These remote rocks were home to a lighthouse, a beacon of safety for ships navigating treacherous waters. In December 1900, 3 experienced keepers maintained the light. James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald MacArthur were seasoned men, accustomed to isolation and the sea's moods. On December 15th, a passing ship noted that the lighthouse was dark. Days later, on December 26th, the relief vessel Hesperus arrived with supplies. What they found defied explanation. The lighthouse was completely abandoned. The main door and the gate were both closed. Inside, the kitchen table was set as if for a meal. 2 of the 3 sets of oilskins were missing, but the 3rd remained. The clocks had stopped. Outside, investigators discovered that the iron railings near the landing had been bent, and a wooden box had been damaged, suggesting the impact of enormous force. Despite extensive searches of the island and surrounding waters, no trace of the 3 men was ever found. No bodies, no wreckage, no answers. Theories ranged from a rogue wave sweeping all 3 men into the sea, to murder, to something far stranger. The Flannan Isles mystery endures as a haunting reminder that the ocean keeps its secrets, and that even the most experienced can vanish without warning. Amelia Earhart. She was more than a pilot. She was a symbol of courage in an era when women were told what they could not do. By 1937, Amelia Earhart had already made history as the first woman to fly solo across the Atlantic. Now, at age 39, she was attempting something even more ambitious, a flight around the world at the equator. Accompanied by navigator Fred Noonan, she departed Miami on June 1st in her twin-engine Lockheed Electra. For over a month, they covered 22,000 miles across multiple continents. On July 2nd, they took off from Lae, New Guinea, bound for tiny Howland Island in the Central Pacific. It was one of the most challenging legs, 2,556 miles of open ocean, with a destination less than 2 miles long. The U.S. Coast Guard cutter Itasca waited near Howland to provide radio guidance. Earhart's transmissions grew increasingly desperate. She reported overcast skies and dwindling fuel. Her voice indicated she was searching frantically for the island she could not find. Then, silence. The most extensive air and sea search in naval history was launched immediately, covering 250,000 square miles of the Pacific. Not a single piece of wreckage was found. Theories have proliferated for decades. Some believe she crashed into the ocean and sank. Others suggest she landed on a remote atoll and died as a castaway. A few claim she was captured by the Japanese. The mystery endures as aviation's most famous unsolved disappearance, a reminder that even legends can vanish without a trace. The Sodder Children. Christmas Eve, 1945, should have been a night of joy for the Sodder family in Fayetteville, West Virginia. George and Jenny Sodder had built a life together with their 10 children in their 2-story home. But shortly after midnight, fire erupted. The family awoke to smoke and flames already consuming the structure. George, Jenny, and 4 of their children escaped into the freezing night. 5 others, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, and Betty, ranging from ages 5 to 14, were still inside. George attempted to reach them but was driven back by the intensity of the blaze. He rushed to his truck, but the engine would not start. He ran to retrieve a ladder, but it was gone. The phone lines were dead. By the time firefighters arrived, the house had burned to the ground. What happened next defied all logic. Despite the fierce heat that should have left bones and teeth, no human remains were found in the ashes. Authorities quickly ruled the children dead, victims of the fire. George and Jenny refused to accept this conclusion. Strange details emerged. The phone lines had been cut. A strange man had been seen watching the house days before. The fire chief later admitted he had lied about finding remains. Over the following years, reports surfaced of the children being spotted alive in different locations. The family erected a billboard with their photographs, a public plea that stood for decades. The Sodders never stopped searching, never stopped believing their children had been taken. The case remains unsolved, a haunting question mark in the lives of those left behind. Flight 19. On the afternoon of December 5, 1945, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers lifted off from Fort Lauderdale Naval Air Station on a routine training exercise. It was a clear day, and the mission was simple, a 2-hour navigational flight over the Atlantic. 14 men were aboard the 5 aircraft, most of them students with their instructor, Lieutenant Charles Taylor, leading the formation. Instead, they flew into legend. About 90 minutes into the flight, radio operators began receiving increasingly frantic transmissions from Flight 19. Taylor reported that his compasses had malfunctioned, both of them. He believed they were somewhere over the Florida Keys, but he was disoriented. In reality, they had drifted far out over the Atlantic. The transmissions grew more desperate as daylight faded. "We don't know which way is west. Everything is wrong. We can't be sure of any direction. Even the ocean doesn't look as it should." By nightfall, all 5 planes had vanished. A massive search operation was launched immediately, but it soon faced its own tragedy. A Martin Mariner flying boat with 13 crew members took off to search for the missing planes. It too disappeared without a trace. No wreckage from any of the 6 aircraft was ever found. No bodies were recovered. The incident became the cornerstone of the Bermuda Triangle myth, a symbol of the sea and sky's power to swallow men and machines whole, leaving only questions in their wake. Jim Thompson. In the heart of Bangkok in the 1960s, an American entrepreneur had achieved what seemed impossible. Jim Thompson, a former OSS intelligence officer, had single-handedly revived Thailand's dying silk industry and transformed it into a global luxury brand. His traditional Thai house, filled with priceless Asian art, was a testament to his success and his deep love for his adopted country. On Easter Sunday, March 26, 1967, Thompson joined friends at a cottage in the Cameron Highlands of Malaysia. After lunch, the 61-year-old announced he was going for a short walk along a nearby path. He stepped into the afternoon sunshine and was never seen again. The alarm was raised within hours when he failed to return for tea. Search parties combed the highlands for weeks. Police, military units, local trackers, and even Aboriginal tribes joined the hunt. They found no trace, no footprints, no torn clothing, no signs of struggle or accident. The jungle had seemingly swallowed him whole. Theories proliferated wildly. Some believed communist insurgents had kidnapped him for his intelligence background. Others suspected business rivals or that he had been attacked by a tiger. More outlandish claims suggested he had staged his own disappearance to escape debts or start a new life. Thompson was declared legally dead in 1974. His house became a museum, but the question of what happened on that Easter afternoon remains one of Southeast Asia's most enduring mysteries. Lord Lucan. In the autumn of 1974, Richard John Bingham, the 7th Earl of Lucan, was a troubled man. The British aristocrat and professional gambler was embroiled in a bitter custody battle with his estranged wife. He had lost access to his children and was hemorrhaging money on legal fees and gambling debts. On the evening of November 7th, in the family's former London townhouse, a brutal attack took place. Sandra Rivet, the nanny, was bludgeoned to death in the basement. Lady Lucan was also attacked but managed to escape to a nearby pub, claiming her husband was the assailant. When police arrived at the house, Lord Lucan was gone. His car was discovered abandoned in New Haven with bloodstains inside and a length of lead pipe. He had written letters to friends protesting his innocence, claiming he had interrupted an intruder. Despite an immediate manhunt and reported sightings from Africa to Australia, he was never found. A coroner's inquest took the extraordinary step of naming him as the murderer of Sandra Rivet. Some believe he committed suicide by drowning in the English Channel. Others suggest his wealthy friends helped him flee abroad to start a new life. In 1999, he was declared legally dead, but obsession with his fate persists. The case reveals how privilege and connection can blur the lines of justice, and how the powerful can seemingly vanish into thin air. Frederick Valentich. On the evening of October 21st, 1978, a 20-year-old Australian pilot prepared for a routine flight. Frederick Valentich was flying a small Cessna 182 from Melbourne to King Island across the Bass Strait. The weather was clear and the sea calm beneath him. It was meant to be a simple journey to pick up friends and return home. At 7:06 p.m., Valentich radioed Melbourne Flight Service to report something unusual. He described a large aircraft with 4 bright lights circling above him at high speed. The controller confirmed there was no known traffic in the area. Over the next 6 minutes, Valentich's transmissions became increasingly agitated. He reported that the mysterious craft was playing a game with him, flying over the top of his aircraft. He described it as long and metallic, moving at incredible speeds. His final words were chilling. The craft was hovering above him, he said. It was not an aircraft. Then came a strange metallic scraping sound over the radio, and the transmission ended abruptly. An extensive air and sea search was launched immediately, covering over 1,000 square miles of ocean. Nothing was found. No wreckage, no oil slick, no trace of Valentich or his plane. To this day, the case remains one of aviation's most baffling mysteries and a cornerstone of UFO research, proving that even in the modern age, the skies hold secrets we cannot explain. Glenn Miller. In the winter of 1944, the swing era's most beloved bandleader was at the height of his fame. Glenn Miller had put his career on hold to serve his country, leading the Army Air Force Band and bringing moments of joy to troops across war-torn Europe. On December 15th, he was scheduled to fly from England to Paris ahead of his band to prepare for a Christmas broadcast for the soldiers. The single-engine UC-64 Norseman took off from an airfield near Bedford in thick fog and freezing conditions. Miller was a passenger, along with the pilot and one other officer. The flight across the English Channel should have been routine, but the small aircraft never arrived at its destination. No distress signal was ever received. No wreckage was ever found. The plane and its 3 occupants simply vanished over one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. A massive search operation was launched, but the waters revealed nothing. Theories have persisted for decades. Some believe the plane's carburetor iced over in the extreme cold, causing it to plunge into the channel. Others point to declassified records suggesting the aircraft may have been struck by bombs jettisoned from returning Allied bombers. A few claim Miller survived the crash and died in a Paris hospital, his death covered up for unknown reasons. The disappearance of Glenn Miller remains one of World War II's most enduring mysteries, a reminder that even icons can vanish without explanation. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. On the night of March 8, 2014, a state-of-the-art Boeing 777 pushed back from the gate in Kuala Lumpur, bound for Beijing. On board were 239 souls, passengers and crew beginning what should have been a routine 6-hour journey. The aircraft was one of the safest and most technologically advanced in the skies, equipped with multiple redundant systems and constant satellite communication. Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, an experienced pilot with over 18,000 flight hours, was at the controls. The plane took off without incident, climbing into the darkness over the South China Sea. At 1:19 a.m., the last routine communication came from the cockpit. Minutes later, the aircraft's transponder was deliberately switched off. The plane vanished from civilian radar, but military systems tracked it as it made a sharp turn back across the Malaysian peninsula. For the next 6 hours, the aircraft flew on, its path traced only by automated satellite handshakes, digital pings that revealed it was still airborne but offered no explanation for why. Despite the largest and most expensive search operation in aviation history, spanning millions of square miles of ocean, the main wreckage has never been found. Only a few fragments of debris, washed up on distant shores years later, confirm the aircraft had met its end somewhere in the Indian Ocean. Theories range from deliberate pilot action to hijacking, from catastrophic mechanical failure to cabin fire and hypoxia. In an age of total surveillance and global positioning systems, a massive aircraft carrying hundreds of people simply vanished. It proves that even in our modern world, the unknown still exists. These stories, scattered across the centuries, remind us that mystery is woven into the fabric of human existence. From ancient legions to modern aircraft, the pattern repeats. People vanish, leaving behind only questions and the ache of not knowing. If you found this exploration of history's unsolved mysteries interesting, please consider giving it a like, and leave a comment, sharing which disappearance intrigued you most. Subscribe for more deep dives into the events that continue to puzzle and fascinate us. Thank you for watching.